Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
The SS Anne 2.0 sailed across the icy Kanto seas on this winter's day. Mark, Anthony, Rachel, and Go were feeling the festive spirit as the entire cruise ship was decked out for the holiday season. With all their recent adventures, the trio had completely forgotten that Christmas was approaching, and the sudden realization hit them. This would be their first Christmas away from home. Go tried to cheer them up by taking them around the Christmas market and buying them each an ornament. He treated them to dinner before heading to the movies to watch a classic Christmas film. Go had to leave them at the lounge area to make a phone call. Rachel let out a sigh.
I have to train for the upcoming contest in a couple of days. It'll be at the SS Anne's auditorium.
Suddenly, she was approached by her rival, Emma, with her smoochum perched on her shoulder. As if sensing its presence, Igglybuff popped out of its moonball and confronted Smoochum.
Rachel, if I were you, I wouldn't bother training for the contest. I'm going to win, and I'll be the princess of the seas.
Emma and Smoochum walked away, leaving Rachel and Igglybuff fuming.
Hey, Rach, what happened between you two?
Anthony asked, noticing her anger.
It all started 5 Christmases ago.
The memory began on a chilly late afternoon in the park. Rachel and Emma were just 10 years old and had just finished school for the holiday season. Rachel appeared frustrated.
I still can't believe they changed the trainer age to 15. It's not fair. I should have been out there by now, traveling with my own Pokémon.
Emma glanced at her friend.
I know, Rach, but we'll still get our chance. Besides, I'm not sure I even want to be a trainer. I've been thinking of becoming a star, like one of those famous performers.
Rachel paused.
You know, it's my dream to be a top coordinator like Serena, Dawn, and May. But haven't you heard the rumors? There might be a Pokémon war. My dad's already worried about it. He says everything could change. I've heard about the rumors too. But Rachel, you're an oak and a stone. Your family is one of the wealthiest in Kanto and Hoenn. You'll be fine no matter what happens. What's that supposed to mean?
Emma hesitated, realizing she had struck a nerve, but pressed on.
I just mean, you'll always have your family's money and connections. Some of us won't have it that easy.
The words hit Rachel like a slap.
So that's what you think of me? That I'm just some spoiled rich girl who doesn't have to worry about anything? That's not fair, Emma. You know nothing about what it's like to be part of this family.
Before Emma could respond, a faint hissing sound interrupted them. Both girls turned around to see a group of Ekans slithering toward them. The girls bolted from the playground, weaving through the park into a narrow alleyway, the Ekans slithering after them. Suddenly, the Ekans stopped. Rachel and Emma turned to see why, and their hearts sank. A massive muck oozed into the alleyway, its toxic sludge bubbling as it advanced. Rachel stumbled and fell to the ground.
Emma!
She cried, reaching out as the muck loomed closer. But Emma didn't stop. She froze for a moment, looking back at Rachel, her face full of fear and hesitation, before she just turned and ran, leaving Rachel behind. Rachel's heart pounded in her chest as the muck closed in. Its stench filled the air, and she scrambled backwards, unable to find her footing. She screamed, tears streaming down her face until a sudden wave of energy stopped the muck in its tracks. A blast of psychic energy struck the muck, sending it reeling. Rachel looked up in awe as a shiny Metagross descended into the alley, using Psychic to hurl the muck far away. Emerging from the shadows was Steven Stone, his face etched with concern as he ran to her side. Rachel sobbed as she threw herself into Steven's arms.
I hate her! I hate Emma! She left me! And I hate poison types! I hate them all!
Steven held her tightly, his voice calm and soothing.
Rachel, don't say that. You must never hate anyone. Not every poison type is like that muck. And not every person is what they seem.
Rachel's cries quieted as she listened, but her tears continued to fall. Stephen gently wiped them away and gave her a warm smile.
You're stronger than this, my princess. You'll see. And no matter what happens, I'll always be here for you.
So that's why you hated poison types? Mark asked as we returned to the present. Rachel nodded and admitted that that day traumatized her, and after her father died, her fear of poison types got worse. Rachel admitted that she adored her Nidorina and Gloom and the other poison types in her group, but she still had some fear of them. Anthony said he had his fair share of holiday traumas and recounted a memory he had from 10 years ago when he was just 7 years old. It was Christmas Day. Anthony was watching a battle from the World Coronation series on the dated television. Ash Ketchum had just defeated Volkner. Anthony cheered loudly, his voice echoing through the dimly lit and slightly run-down apartment. His mother Hillary shuffled behind him, her face weary. It was Christmas Day, but the atmosphere in their small apartment was far from festive. As Anthony continued to watch, Hillary's phone rang. She answered it hesitantly, and her tone quickly became pleading.
Please, it's Christmas Day. I've worked 6 days straight. I can't find a sitter this late. Yes, I understand. I'll be there.
She hung up and with a sigh turned to Anthony, who had turned to face her with a concerned expression. Hillary had guilt written all over her face.
You're going to work?
I don't have a choice, Anthony. I'm sorry.
But it's Christmas!
Anthony protested, his voice breaking.
You promised we'd spend it together!
Hillary closed her eyes, struggling with her emotions.
I know, sweetheart, but we need the money. I'll make it up to you. I promise.
Then I'll come with you!
Anthony said, standing up with determination.
You can't. It's not safe.
Why not? What kind of cleaning job is it?
Hillary didn't answer, her silence only fueling his frustration. She hugged him tightly, kissed his forehead, and then locked the apartment door as she left, leaving Anthony alone. Anthony paced the room fuming.
I'm going to give her boss a piece of my mind!
Determined, he began searching for the spare key. After rummaging through drawers and cabinets, he found a spare key hidden in a jar. Minutes later, he was out the door racing to the curb. He spotted the bus his mother had boarded just moments ago. Thinking quickly, he saw an abandoned bike nearby and without hesitation, hopped on. He pedaled as fast as his legs could manage, following the bus for over an hour until it stopped in a rural area. Hillary stepped off and began walking toward the forest, and Anthony trailed her, keeping his distance. As he followed her through the woods, Anthony's heart raced with both excitement and fear. When Hillary emerged into a clearing, Anthony's breath caught. In the middle of nowhere stood a massive building, emblazoned with a large red R. His stomach dropped.
Team Rocket? Mom works for Team Rocket?
He watched as Hillary entered the base, but the heavy doors slammed shut before he could reach them. Anthony spotted a vent and climbed inside, his small frame allowing him to crawl through the ducts with relative ease. As he navigated the vents, he heard his mother's voice. Peeking through the grates, he saw her being scolded by Mattori, Giovanni's secretary.
You're late. Giovanni's coming tomorrow. This place needs to be spotless.
Hillary apologized profusely. Anthony's heart ached for her.
She's just a cleaner.
He realized, the anger in his chest softening.
She has to take any job she can get, but nothing is worth this.
Continuing through the vents, Anthony overheard Jesse, James, and Meowth discussing their latest plans to capture Pikachu. Their nervous chatter about Giovanni's arrival made them shiver. He crawled onward, but as he peered through another vent, he saw a red-haired boy ahead and quickly ducked out of sight. He didn't know who that boy was, but something about him felt dangerous. Eventually, Anthony exited the vents and found himself in a dark hallway. Suddenly, a Persian emerged from the shadows, its glowing eyes locking onto him. With a growl, it lunged. Anthony screamed as the Pokemon's claws raked his back, sending him tumbling to the floor. The Persian prepared to strike again, but before it could, a blast of water struck it, forcing it to retreat. Anthony's vision blurred, and the last thing he saw before losing consciousness was the silhouette of a Pokemon. When Anthony woke up, he was in a hospital bed. His mother, Hillary, sat beside him, her face pale and tearful.
Anthony, I was so worried.
I don't want you to work for Team Rocket anymore. I don't care if we're poor. I'd rather live on the streets than have you work for them.
Hillary's eyes filled with guilt and sorrow. Before she could respond, a nurse entered the room.
I couldn't help overhearing. I know someone who might be able to help. Nurse Joy at the Viridian City Pokémon Center is looking for a cleaner. I can put in a good word for you.
Hillary's relief was palpable. She turned back to Anthony, holding his hands tightly.
I promise, Anthony. I'll quit. I'll do everything I can to give us a better life. No more Team Rocket.
Anthony snapped back to reality. Wow, so that's why you hate Team Rocket. Your mother had no choice but to work for them, and they treated her badly, Mark said. I can't believe you got hurt by that Persian.
Yeah, your story explains a lot.
Rachel added, giving Anthony a knowing look. She understood why he always gave Darius nasty glares, but Mark was still unaware. Anthony quickly changed the subject.
Oh, so, Mark, what were Christmases like in the Masters household?
They were mostly great, except for that one 7 years ago, Mark replied, a hopeless expression crossing his face.
Johto's Dark Christmas?
Rachel asked. She, like the rest of the world, knew too well what had happened 7 years ago in the Johto region, on Christmas Day of all days. The memory began with 8-year-old Mark sitting on the couch, glued to the television as Ash Ketchum faced Tobias in an electrifying match, successfully defending his world championship title. Mark cheered, his fists pumping in the air. I want to be just like him one day! His mother Mia chuckled softly as she walked into the room.
Well, little champion, why don't you start by telling your father and grandfather that dinner is almost ready?
Mark bolted out the door, the cool breeze of New Barktown brushing his face. On the way, he passed his grandpa, who was lovingly tending to his meganium. Suddenly, a mischievous Apom swooped in and snatched Mark's hat right off his head. Mark yelled, taking off after the cheeky Pokemon. Apom chittered playfully as it led Mark on a wild chase across the enclosed landscape and out into the open streets of New Barktown. Mark's pursuit was briefly interrupted when a formation of jets roared through the sky above, their engines deafening. He stared in awe for a moment before shaking it off and continuing after the Apom. But as he turned a corner, 2 older boys stepped out in front of him. Well, if it isn't Marcus the Carcass, one of them sneered. Mark froze, fear gripping him. The boys laughed harder, emboldened by his silence. They shoved him to the ground, their mocking words cutting deeper than any physical blow. Just as Mark started to curl into himself, he heard familiar voices. Leave him alone! Shouted Malcolm, Mark's older triplet. Maven, his other triplet, stood beside him, fists clenched and his glare sharp enough to make the bullies falter. The 2 bullies hesitated before running off, their laughter echoing behind them. Cowards! Maven shouted. You gotta toughen up, Mark. Stand your ground next time. Before Mark could respond, a sound caught his attention, a high-pitched cry. He looked up to see the Apom holding his hat but pointing toward the sky. Mark followed its gaze, and his heart sank. Jets with the unmistakable red R symbol roared overhead, their bellies releasing bombs that rained destruction across Johto. Explosions rocked the earth as buildings crumbled, fires spread, and chaos erupted. Run! Maven shouted, grabbing Mark's arm and pulling him along. Malcolm followed close behind, their steps frantic as they dodged falling debris and blasts of flame. The once familiar streets of New Barktown were now unrecognizable, littered with rubble and panic-stricken people. When they finally reached home, Mark froze. Their house, the place where they had shared countless memories, was now a smoldering ruin. Mark's chest tightened, his breaths coming in short gasps. He clutched his fists, unable to control the panic surging through him. Mark, breathe, Malcolm said. In and out. You're okay. We're okay. Mark nodded shakily, following his brother's guidance until his breathing steadied. Together, they ran to the enclosed landscape, desperate to find their mother. They found Mia, her arms outstretched as she tried to calm the rampaging Pokemon that had lost their homes and loved ones. An enraged Ursaring charged at them, its eyes wild with grief. Mia shielded her sons with her body, bracing for the impact. But before the Ursaring could strike, a Typhlosion burst onto the scene. It roared and leapt into battle, Clashing with the Ursaring in a fierce fight, Typhlosion emerged victorious, and Mark's father Mike appeared moments later, pulling the family into a protective huddle. "We need to find Grandpa," Mike said urgently. Their search didn't take long. They heard anguished screams and rushed to find Grandpa kneeling over his fallen Meganium. The Pokémon had been caught in the crossfire, its lifeless body lying amidst the devastation. Grandpa sobbed uncontrollably. Mike tried to pull him away, but Grandpa resisted, unwilling to leave his partner behind as the fires closed in. Then, the sky darkened. Mark looked up in awe as Lugia descended from the clouds. With a sweep of its wings, it summoned a torrential downpour, quelling the flames and bringing relief to the scorched earth. As Lugia prepared to leave, it paused and glanced down at Mark, its piercing eyes meeting his. Mark felt a sense of calm wash over him, the legendary Pokemon's presence both humbling and inspiring. He watched in silence as Lugia disappeared into the horizon, leaving him breathless and tearful. "Giovanni will pay for this," Mike said, his voice filled with rage. Not long after that, the Dark Alliance attacked other regions. At least they were prepared. But Johto wasn't on that day. That Christmas day, Mark said sadly. The trio felt their bond deepen after sharing stories of their Christmas past. Anthony wanted to tell Mark that the trauma he had endured caused him to hate Meowth in Persian, which included Darius, but he didn't feel it was the right time. Go returned from his phone call and immediately sensed something was different about the trio. He asked them to follow him, and they went outside, approaching the railing. They stared up at the night sky, and fireworks erupted in different colors. Over the next few days, the trio enjoyed spending time with Go as they made their way to Cinnabar Island. Mark and Anthony helped Rachel prepare for her upcoming contest, and she began to feel confident again. The four of them spent Christmas Day together, enjoying a nice meal and calling their families. Mark was disappointed there were no updates on Maven and Malcolm, but he was happy to see his grandfather. "Hey, Gramps," Mark said with a smile on the video call. "Johto forever!"
That's right, my boy. Johto forever.
Grandpa cheered, leaving Mark with a tear in his eye. Though he wasn't spending Christmas with his family, he realized how much he missed them, and how much he loved them, with all his heart.
What is up, my elites? Elite MJ here, the writer and producer of Pokemon Next Generation. I wanted to jump on here to express my gratitude for all your support to the channel, and it also got me reflecting on this incredible year. I started writing Pokemon fanfiction 10 years ago, and I never would have thought it would come to life here on YouTube, getting the engagement it has gotten just in 9 months. I really hope you guys stay along on this incredible journey. I promise to do my best to keep you entertained, and not just with my Pokemon fanfiction, but with more content that will expand the channel and this community. So I want to end this video by wishing you all a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, along with a Happy New Year. Take care, and I'll see you in 2025.